welcome back to Certified Black Weirdo, where I, Angela Tharp, for a second I was like, who am I? Where am I? Why am I in this booth? Talk about and celebrate the art of a certified Black weirdo each week. And so it's something that's like Black art, but weird, kind of off the beaten path, and rotate genres. This week we're talking about Ziwe's interview with Vince Staples because it's my wild card week, and so I picked this because I saw some clips on Instagram, and I was like, it was actually like my boyfriend was on Instagram, and I was just like staring. I was like, "Can you show me the next one? Can you show me the next one?" And then I just watched the whole thing. It's on YouTube, 20 minutes. I'll link it below. So we're gonna talk about what was the interview? What is it about? Is the first question. What was weird about it? What did I like about it? What it reminded me of? And a favorite quote. In this episode too, I also kind of just talk about Black weirdos in general and the importance of like the melding of minds between them to kind of like expand on that and just have more space for that. And also like the way that race was sort of like addressed directly in this interview in a way that kind of reminded me of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, as opposed to like maybe the less confrontational way we talk about race today. So those are some things to look forward to. We also talk about like the history of Black cultural histories. I've recommended some documentaries on that. And and we've got lighting now. We've got a mic now, which I'll show you again after I recorded it and then I'm recording this intro. But anyway, thanks for hanging out. And yeah, feel free to drop comments, thoughts, questions, ideas not in the chat. We can call the discussion board the chat. Drop it in the chat. Thanks for listening. So we're going to jump in. Thank you for being here, for hanging out with me, talking about this. You know, it's funny because I haven't recorded the intro yet. So I was trying to like just pretend as if I'd already done the intro, but it felt very scary. So, or not scary, but just like, I'm not very good at acting. I'm good at like talking or like hanging out on the cuff, but not so good at, you know, pretending that I've done something that I've not. When I was a kid, my older sibling, I'm like one of 5 kids, and my older siblings would want me to pretend that I was like young enough to get a free kids meal or whatever. Like let's say I was like 6 and kids under 5 and under 8 for free. And so they would kind of be like, just pretend that you're 5, and I like couldn't do it. And I would just like start crying. And my sister, like later when I was a teenager, she needed somebody who was 18 to sign the little waiver to ride the reckless, crazy rides. I don't know if you guys have had fairs or like, what's it called? Like, is it county fair? Just the fair. We just called it the fair. But she needed somebody who was 18 and I was 17, and I was like, I can't do it. I don't know. I have a weird thing about lying, I guess, or pretending. I'm a Scorpio, and Scorpios apparently hate lying, so maybe that has something to do with it. Anyway, all of that to say, I have not recorded the intro yet, but by the time you see this, there will be an intro. Also, I have a light now, which is nice. My partner gave me like a little microphone, which is cool. So I don't have to like painstakingly sync the audio and video. I've got what's it called? Not a podium, a stand, tripod. It's fine. We got lots of stuff going on over here. So thank you for hanging out. But I'm still in this booth, but now it's not so dark, which is nice. Anyway, so today we're talking about Ziwe's interview with Vince Staples, which I'm really excited about. Basically on this channel, which I might have already said in the intro, we're kind of taking some art by Black weirdos and just talking about it, celebrating it. I'll share what I liked about it, what I thought was weird, what it reminded me of, and like a quote that I really liked. And so I think, you know, I was just going to go on like a movie train and do like, I did They Clone Tyrone, and then I was going to do Zola, which I really like, and then Sorry to Bother You, and just like, there's a movie store in Atlanta that I go to, so I was just going to like run through all the movies and then see what to do after that. But I think what I'm going to do is rotate genre, because it's probably better for me too, because I don't know. It's just like, that way I can like watch this, and then next time I can do, the genres are movie, wild card, which is what this week is, album, and then book. So maybe that's easier. Anyway, we're talking about this interview, which was so fun, and I have my notes over here if you're wondering why I'm looking over here. And yeah, so basically what the first question, the sections, or what this is, how this is structured, is like, what's it about? What was weird about it? Like in a good way, obviously. What did you like about it? or what did I like about it? What I liked, what I liked about it, what it reminded me of, and then just a quote that I liked. So, yeah. So this is an interview where Ziwe was interviewing Vince Staples about season 2 of a show on Netflix, which I have not seen. So if you've seen the show, please put in the comments what you thought. Was it fun? I need to get back. Like my problem with, well, everyone's problem with all these streaming services, but mine too, is like as soon as I unsubscribe from one and sign up for the other one, there's something I want to see on the other one. The other one, I'm like, I can't. How much can I put toward streaming? Oh, now they're collapsing, so it's just going to be like what, $140 bill or something, which is not great. But I unsubscribed from Netflix and subscribed to HBO Max so that I could watch I Love LA, which is also weird and fun, and has a Black Weirdo on it. So maybe one day we'll talk about that. But then, you know, now I want to see this. So maybe I'll just have to get both. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, he was promoting season 2 of his show on Netflix. And yeah, and so he was talking to Ziwe. And what I loved about it, which we'll talk about in a second, is it just felt like a meeting of the minds in a way that was really fun to see. And it's like, I feel like we have these like weird Black characters or people, both are personas, or, you know, the spectrum of persona, person, character, like Keith Stanfield's character in Atlanta, you know, or I'm thinking about like Chewing Gum, Michaela Cole, but usually there's sort of like the only weird one, like that's like their character, and then there's like somebody who's like more playing things straight, and then, you know, I don't know, other people. and so it was just like very satisfying to see like 2 weird, smart people be in conversation with each other and just kind of like bounce off of each other and just sort of like be in this weird world together. And especially as like Black people, and just kind of, I don't know, just like feeding off of that energy was very satisfying, as I don't know, a lot of people felt online, and it's just the interview's doing really well on the internet, which is really cool to see. And it was just satisfying in that way. But I've seen Ziwe's interview since 2020. I really like how like weird and provocative she is. She also has a really good essay collection called Black Friend, which is like funny and smart and weird. There's a story in there about her, like, I think she was like house sitting. No, she was like, she rented like an Airbnb in the woods. And then this like couple was sort of like weirdly like harassing her about like if she was, I don't know, if she knew the people, if she was supposed to be there. It was like this like weird little haunting racial situation, and that I still think about all the time. And I read that book like years ago, maybe like 2 years ago. I can't remember when it came out, but yeah. So I think about that with Ziwe too, like this, her show, but also that book, Black Friend, which maybe I could put the cover of here. Or are you guys proud? I mean, if you saw the last one, I was able to put an image up, which it was, you know, my first time doing that. So, oh gosh. So maybe I'll do that again. Anyway, it's called Black Friend. And then I saw Vince Staples' tweets promoting his show, and he had like these tweets where he was like asking people for marketing ideas for the show, and then he was like roasting everybody's ideas. You can look that up too. But that's literally, I haven't listened to his music. I haven't seen the show, so I'm gonna have to do some more due diligence with all of that now, which is what these interviews are supposed to be for, right? Promoting. And now I'm like, I need to know everything about him. Anyway, so that's kind of what it was about. She was interviewing him. She does like, I mean, maybe you guys have seen her interviews before. Maybe you saw this one. But she does like sort of these like provocative interviews where she's trying to like get people to say the wrong thing. And they're really fun. Yeah, they're really fun and really smart. And so, but this was like, I think this one's so popular in part because he was kind of like even further than she was in the back and forth. Like he was kind of pushing things further and further, and she was kind of having to bring it back. Whereas usually she's the one that pushes people, and then they have to be like, I don't know. So it was really, really fun in that way. And it also, somebody said in the comments that it reminded them of Chicken Shop Date, which is another really fun YouTube show. I think it's just on YouTube, or not just on YouTube, but I think that's where a lot of people see it. And in that show, she kind of does the same thing that Ziwe does, where they're kind of like, she's kind of trying to push them to say something awkward, except it's sort of like date coded or romantic coded. And Ziwe's show is more like political correctness coded. But this one had the same energy as some of those episodes, which of Chicken Shop Date, which I really like too. So anyway, that's kind of what it's about. what was weird about it, if this is like certified Black weirdo, what makes this weird. I was talking to my partner about like what is weird to me. I guess he's really smart and he's weird too, so like we have a lot of conversations like this. But like I think for me, there's like stuff that's like straight laced and serious, like this is just the thing, right? And regardless of like the interest of the art, which could be like a various amount of things, to me something that's like not necessarily like weird as if it's like this is what it is, like this is where we're earnestly approaching these topics, right? And to me weird is like we're not really like there's like a slant or there's like if like something that's not weird, something that's just like serious, formal, or not necessarily formal, but just like straight laced, is like this is the thing, we're just talking about the thing, we're talking about the thing and this is it. Then to me weird is like we're getting there, but there's like, in this interview Ziwe, which I'll talk about in a second, but like Ziwe kind of talks about or tells Vince Staples like you have like a deep undercurrent. Like the way you think, there's like so much underneath what you're saying. And I think that to me is like a really good example of like what I consider weird is like we're getting to the thing in a way that feels not roundabout, like not wanting to talk about it, but in a way that feels like layered and strange and like off the beaten path of like, this is the way to the thing. This is the way to the thing. Weird to me is like, but also there's like all this other stuff. Like this isn't the only way to the thing, and that like offbeatness is so interesting because it kind of like shows to me how vast everything is. Everything is, but Black culture to me, which is, one of my biggest interests and like one of the biggest things that kind of keeps me thinking and excited and energized, is like thinking about art by Black people and making art as a Black person and like the Black experience. And like, it's funny because like some people online are like, hey, stop talking about race, which I'll talk about in this interview too. I think is like really interesting, that the way they talk about race. But I feel like we're kind of like in this time right now where like interracially race has become like something that we like is sort of taboo to bring up, I'm using my eye twitching. Within Black people, it's like always been normalized and it's like always been important for like keeping a shared sense of like groundedness and reality of like, this is what it is. Don't let them like stay woke used to be like, remember what it is. Remember that like the things that like we're told don't exist in terms of like systemic oppression, they still do, even if like we're not acknowledging them in like mixed company, I guess. And I think, oh gosh, where was it going? I think that like, to me, Black culture and Black art specifically is so interesting because it's like you're like having an experience that's like like not beneath, but like there's like the experience, there's like reality as like everyone has agreed. No, not really everyone has agreed. It's basically like it's kind of what I was talking about last week with the double consciousness, where it's like there's your experience and the experiences of the Black people that and then there's like the truth of that actual experience, and then there's like what like people in power have said you can say and said you can address, and like the gaslighting, racial gaslighting, which is a term that I learned recently, where like basically like you're told on a broader level that those things aren't real and those things aren't happening, and like you need to just forget about it and just move as if you're not being discriminated against. And I think like Black art is so interesting because it's like the reality of having to navigate that like gaslighting, which like Ta-Nehisi Coates in Between the World and Me calls it the dream, where it's, and James Baldwin talks about this a lot. I Am Not Your Negro by that's funny. I'm Not Your Negro. I was just saying that. Anyway, I Am Not Your Negro is a documentary about like Black cultural history and like the history of discrimination in America, but also like how it shows up in movies and TVs and films. Is like one of the most influential things about like how I see Black representation and like how I see like these tropes that have like morphed over time but have stayed there. That's like such a good documentary to think about that. Marlon Riggs has a documentary about that too. I think it's called ethnic notions. One second. Yeah, ethnic notions. Ethnic notions is also a really, really great documentary for kind of like seeing how Black representation in like broader American culture has changed over time and stayed the same. And I Am Not Your Negro, that's like an hour-long documentary, but I Am Not Your Negro is another one that's really, really, really good in that sense of like seeing how those tropes have stayed the same and changed. And In Between the World and Me, Ta-Nehisi Coates is like, sorry, I'm gonna get to this interview very soon. My brain is like so associative. I'm always like, all of these things, actually, I can't stop thinking about all, but anyway, in Between the World and Me, Ta-Nehisi Coates, he kind of talks about this idea that James Baldwin talks about in his work, and that his work is like the voiceover for the I'm Not Your Negro documentary. But basically like this idea that there's like a fantasy world that like people who are invested in white values kind of like subscribe to. And so it's not like really all white people, and it's not like everyone who's a person of color doesn't believe that. Like there are people who've sort of like drank the white supremacy Kool-Aid, and like that creates this idea that like everything's fine, racism doesn't exist, discrimination doesn't exist, what are you talking about, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps, nobody's gonna stop you, even though there's like Black towns that were burned to the ground because they were doing too well, right? And there's like discrimination on every like school systems, interviews, like everything, policing, like everything, and yet like we're sort of like told that those things aren't real, even though we've literally physically experienced them. And I love Black culture for like navigating, like first just like ignoring that, like the black artists are just like, I don't care about any of that, like I'm just here with my people and we're having a good time, a Black world, as Kevin Quashie calls it. And then there's people that are like, how do you talk about that disconnect? And how do you navigate like the place where Black and white people have to meet? And just in everyday life where they bump up against each other, how do you navigate that? Do you just like pretend racism doesn't exist? Do you like and try to convince white people that it does? Do you like what is that imagination there? And what is that imagination in the Black world? And both of those things I think are really rich and interesting. I don't think it's interesting to like try to convince people that don't believe in racism that racism is real, because like what's the point? James Baldwin and Toni Morrison talk about how like it's a waste of your time to try to convince people that racism is real. But I think that like people who grew up in spaces that are like multi-culti or like mostly white, and then people who grew up in places that were like mostly or all Black, like both of those arts, like means of expression and art and imagination within Black culture are really, really interesting to me. Anyway, enough about all that. Let's talk about this interview. So, so what was weird about it? I guess all of that goes back to like the idea of like weird Black art being like deep as the ocean, as Ziwe put it, as like it's just like all of these things. It's not just like the straight-laced movies and shows and TV that's like slavery was real. Here's like, that's important too. Like 12 Years a Slave, I guess, I mean, it is important. Like, it's important to acknowledge that racism is real and slavery is real and to show that straight. But I also think it's so, so interesting when you have stuff that's like thinking about that in a way that's like surreal and strange and like more bizarre. And this interview just kind of reminded me of that. And so what was weird about it? I thought it was very refreshing the way that he was talking about racism, white supremacy, capitalism, like these systems that like, especially in like obviously like the 70s, 80s, 90s, people were talking about and just like explicitly being like, this is bad, we need to stop it, like on a public stage in front of everybody. And I think that like post-Obama, maybe post-Obama, post-Obama, and I think like with, Trump and everything that's happening now, it just feels like everyone's like, oh, we're like, it's not, I'm not evil, so like, let's just not talk. Like, I think like some white people can be kind of like, I'm not Trump, so like, what do you want from me? You know what I mean? And I think that like everybody's just trying to like get, I don't know, out of like the extreme crisis that we're in by like not getting into the weeds of things, but like those weeds are like still the base of this crisis that we're in. And I really, really liked in this interview how he was just like, we need a revolution. Like we need to start over. Like, we need communism. We need this. And like, in a way, there was a comment in the interview that I really, really like, where they said, like, black people like Vince Staples because white people think he's joking. And it's like I think that, like, the combination of humor and, like, radical ideas and, like, just radical statements and thoughts, but also, like, this sort of, like, bizarre twist to them that makes them, like, not necessarily more palatable to people who don't agree, but, like, more zany in general. It just, like, was so entertaining to watch and, like, so smart, and so explicit in a way that, like, I just feel like and tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, be like, we're talking about this. Come over here. We're talking about like, I just feel like in the spaces that I am in, which are admittedly, like, multi-culti spaces, more like all black spaces when I'm with my friends and we're in all black space, but, like, in my everyday life, it's mixed, and I think I appreciate, like, the directness of, like, here's how I feel. Like, these are problems that and people that I know experience, and, like, tell me I'm wrong, and I don't care if you think I'm wrong. like that confidence and that directness and that, like, bluntness, but, like, in a twist, like a bluntness but bizarre, I think was really satisfying. Let's say, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, Ziwe asked him, do you think there's a heaven? And he said, absolutely not. And then he said this quote. He said, I think people need what they need to survive, but do I think there's a floating man with a blowout? No. And it's just like that. I don't know. Tell me if you know what I mean. It just is like, it's like honest. It's direct. It's clear. It's not like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's not like, it is performative probably. It's like a persona, but it's like, it's not unclear. You know what I mean? But it's still interesting and entertaining and weird and unique. And I think that combination is really satisfying to see in a time where I feel like everybody's a little bit non-confrontational and everybody's, like, in their own weird internet pocket where everybody agrees with them. And so there's not, like, maybe not as many opportunities or spaces to be like, I don't agree and here's why. And, like, you can agree with me, you can not agree with me, but this is what I think, clearly, right? And I think we have, like, less of a need to say explicitly what we think because we're not really bumping up with as many people that disagree with us than we would in a different time, So I thought that was really funny. Thought that was very interesting. I liked what he said he was talking about, like, January 6th and, like, how they didn't have style. And he said, we'll have style when we do this, And it's just like, I don't know. It was just very satisfying and fun. And then Ziwe said, you're a radical. And he said, a little bit. And then there was, like, no joke and she had no response. And then they just cut it. And it's just like, I don't know. I think, like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, but I guess I'm just saying, like, I think that there's an energy there that I really respect, where it's like, I know what I think. This is what I think. I'm going to tell you. I know that this whole interview is kind of a bit, so I'm going to play into the bit. But, like, I also am going to be clear. And I just found that really satisfying. Some other things that I liked, somebody in the comments also called them unhinged intellectuals. And I thought that was, like, a perfect term for, like, I don't know, this kind of, like, being a combination of being super smart, but also being, like, weirdo. And I think that is, like, very satisfying to see. I feel like they met each other in the middle of their, like, weird imaginations. And I think that's part of what made it feel so special was how often a character like them, like Ziwe was kind of talking to Ben Staples about how his audience is, like, primarily, like, young white guys and how, like, what does that mean? And I think, and her audience maybe is similar, or not guys, but, like, young white people maybe. I don't know what her audience is. I'm her audience. But, like, I think that, like, usually when there's a character or a person or, like, somebody who thinks in that way, a persona, like, they're sort of the only one. And I just found, like, their meeting of minds really interesting and satisfying. And I also think that, like, people who are like that, who are black and weird and smart and just, like, I don't know, living in their own world, like, I want to see them together more on screen and off, romantically and as friends. Like, I think that there's, like, this pattern sometimes of, like, in being an outsider, you sort of, like, gravitate toward people who are outsiders of other groups as opposed to, like, other outsiders within your own group. Maybe. Tell me if I'm wrong, and I think it was nice to see, because when I was thinking of like the question of like what does this interview remind me of, I was like, I don't even know. Like if you think about shows or like books or whatever that have like this like character like them, or the character even, it just reminded me of like like Keith Stanfield in Atlanta, and like these characters that are just like in their own world, and just like coming out of their heads to meet other people. Like they're usually the only one, whether it's like a show where they're the only black person, or it's a show where they're like the only weird black person, everybody else is more normie. Like it was nice to see that, and I want to see more of that. And it the only things that I could think of that it reminded me of were in the TV show Love Life in season 2, where basically it's so juicy. I write about this in my nonfiction all the time. But like basically it's like the guy from what's it called? The Good Place. Oh my god, I need to start writing down these names before I do these. Okay, The Good Place. Okay, my keyboard's acting up too. The Good Place. Okay, Chidi from The Good Place. William Jackson Harper is the main character of the second season of Love Life, and he's married to a white woman who's played by Anna Kendrick, and then she's cool, they're cool, everything's cool, except then he meets this other woman, Jessica Williams, yes, who's in a ton of rom-coms that I love, and then they're like having a similar moment. They're like less weird than like Ziwe and Ben Staples here, but like they're kind of like, oh, we get each other, and it's kind of like he has to like leave his wife. Oh gosh, spoiler. Okay, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. The whole show is about like every episode is like a interaction with another person that they're dating, so it was bound to happen. But anyway, oh my god, my first spoiler, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll cut it out. Anyway, so yeah, but basically he has to leave his wife, or decide, let's say he has to decide if he's going to leave his wife to be with her. And I think that like I just want to see like two weird people hanging out. There's like Tuca and Birdie, and like there's like animated shows. I mean, they're not black, but they're weird. I don't know. There's like shows like that, but I want to see like if you think about like what's it called, Broad City. They're both weirds and they're friends. Give me like a black Broad City. And if you can think of one, put it in the comments. Give me like a black. I mean, Broad City is like maybe the only show I can think of off the top of my head where it's like two weird friends hanging out. I don't know. Anyway, I thought that was I really liked that, like their unhinged intellectual energy, as somebody said in the comments. And just meeting each other in the middle, like she asked him like, what's good stabbing form? And he was trying to like weirdly tell her, and then she wasn't really getting it. And then he was like, have you seen Parent Trap? And she was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, fencing, it's similar to that. It's like kind of like dismissive, but it's also like, let me try to show you what I mean, And I thought that, yeah, I think that like there was just a lot of like both of them being weird and being on the same page with that, and the places where they diverged in background or whatever, like trying to get on the same page instead of being like, you don't know what I mean, whatever. Like I think that was kind of, I mean, not necessary, but like interesting and kind of like cool to see. like where's the middle ground? Let's figure that out. But also like we're in our own worlds anyway, and how do we like figure out how to like ping pong back and forth between our imaginations was like really fun. Yeah, and then just the way that he was addressing race, like in a way that was so direct that she didn't know what to say or do, but in a way that was like kind of comforting in that way too, of like these are the problems. These are my problems. Like I'm on the stage. Let me like shout out my family and friends, and also tell you like these are the problems. I'm not going to pretend that these problems don't exist. And I found that like really satisfying, because I think part of why things maybe feel similar, like if you look at like a documentary of like black history, but also like black cultural history, and like these patterns that just come up again and again, it's like you have to address them over and over and over again for them to go away. And they may never go away, but it's like if we don't talk about race, if we don't talk about racism, if we don't talk about like problematic things and representation or whatever, like it's not because my PhD was sort of like in black representation, and it's never because I'm like, but what we have to like be careful about how we're perceived. Like never that. Like who cares how we're perceived? And also it doesn't matter how we act, we're going to be perceived how we're perceived. But it's more about like when I see this interview, or when I see stuff that's like Black and weird in a way that's like affirming and exciting and interesting, it reminds me like, yeah, I exist and other people like me exist, you know, and that's important. And when you see stuff that's kind of like weird or has like these like dark undercurrents of like, I don't know, white supremacy in a Black character, or like this idea, like I was talking about last week, of like serving, or being a threat, you know, it's not that like it confuses white people's understanding of who Black people are, whatever about that. But like, you want to see something that's true to you when you watch TV. And I watch so much TV, and I love movies, and I love books, and I love art, you know, and I want to see people like me and like the people in my life who are Black and any marginalized group, right? Like represented specifically and truly, and in a way that's like has both good and bad parts. Like good representation isn't just like they're a perfect person, because nobody is, and also like the labor of never making a mistake, oh my god, you know. So it's like, it's not that, it's like just want it to feel true, you know. And when I call out the stuff that doesn't feel true, I mean, I'm more of like a, I loved this, let's do more of this, and I'm like this was bad and here's why, you know. I'll kind of like broadly say what's bad and why I think so, but like I'm not someone who's like gonna break down somebody's art on the internet, you know, because I'm an artist and I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. You know, I'd rather them just show me what they thought was good, and maybe I can incorporate more of that. So, you know, it's never to critique in the sense of like pushing someone down a level, but to just say like, can we have more of these good things so that like we can all see ourselves in art? Some art people spend millions and millions of dollars to make. It's like, can you please just like sprinkle in some like thoughtful Blackness, please, for like more Hollywood white stuff, but like for, you know, and like here are people who are doing this well, right? Is kind of what this channel is about, maybe. Anyway, so yeah, it reminded me of Love Life, like the weird. I mean, those characters were they like super weird? Not really, a little, but like the like teaming up of two Black people that are like distinct in the show in a weird way was really, really exciting, and I didn't have a lot of examples of that, so I appreciated that. And then also just the directness about like he asked like Ziwe asked, would you give, I don't know, 10% of your I don't know, she said something about like whose poverty, like would you do this to like end poverty? And he said, can I pick whose poverty I had end? And she said, whose poverty would you end? And he said, the Black community, right? And it's like that explicitness of like, this is who I am doing this for. I really appreciated that. Reminded me of like Issa Rae saying she was rooting for everybody Black, and how that became this whole thing that people were like, yeah, but who specifically? Everybody Black, right? And Ziwe asked him too, like, how many Black friends do you have? And he said all. You know, and it was like that clearness, that directness of like, who are you doing this for? This is who I'm doing it for, and I'm unapologetic about that. I thought was really comforting. And it also reminded me, I'll put this link in the description, of Toni Morrison's interview where they asked her why she shouldn't have more white people in her novels, and she was like, why would you ask me that? She was like, because this is my community, you know. And nobody asked, like, I don't know, no, I can't think of any authors. Nobody asked, oh gosh, who wrote Moby Dick? Okay, now I'm gonna have to. Guys, I can't remember who wrote Moby Dick. Yeah, my brain. Well, to be fair, my brain. Okay, Herman Melville. How was I gonna remember that? How was I gonna remember Herman Melville? Okay, William Faulkner. He did have Black people, honestly. I was gonna say that's another example. Nobody asked William Faulkner to write about X, Y, and Z. But if he didn't have, William Faulkner has actually like a lot of Black characters in his books. Sound of the Fury is a really weird one. As I Lay Dying is one if you're interested in his stuff. Anyway, like she was like, nobody asked these white writers why don't they write about Black people. You're only asking me why I don't have white people, because you don't see the people in this book as legitimate, right? And I don't know, that directness on a very public stage about being pro-Black is like really satisfying for me. Okay, so this is 30 minutes. And once again, very scattered, but thank you for watching. And I'll end with like a favorite quote. I really liked, I think I already said this multiple times, but I really liked how Ziwe said at the end of the interview, you have a deep undercurrent. You're as deep as the ocean. And then he was like, we don't really know how deep the ocean is. And she was like, exactly. And he was like, that was kind. And I just think like, yeah, like I think weirdness ultimately to me is just like a deep imagination. And it is like this like willingness and boldness and confidence to say, this is this is what everyone has agreed is okay. I'm going to go here and just see what happens. I'm going to go here and just see what happens. And always out of respect, right? And always like with other people's wellness in mind, which is honestly just what respect is. But I'm going to explore and I'm going to play and I'm going to see what happens, right? And I think that's very satisfying. And then also there was like a point where she asked him to like address people in California who had slaves, and he thought she's like addressed the slaves from California back in the day, and he just said, "It's okay, it's okay." See, I can never be on that joke because I would never be able to like give a straight face. It's okay. That was pretty good. Anyway, so I thought that was funny that he did that, and then afterwards she said, like after he said something, she was like, "That was haunting." Which I thought was fun. So anyway, this has been the wild card week of Certified Black Weirdo. You know, I'm going to try to rotate genres. So instead of doing like movie, even though that is something that I could do, I'll take the pressure off. Because also if I see one movie and then I'm like, I don't know how to talk about this, and it's like now I have to watch another movie the same week. So rotating genres will help my like really, really type A brain be like, okay, today this week you have to find an album. This week you have to find anything on the internet. This week you have to find a movie, and this week you have to find a book. So yeah, that is that. Thank you for watching. If this was fun to you, send me a air high five. Another one. Okay, great. Or you can like it. You can subscribe. Thank you. Some people have been subscribing, and I really appreciate that. It's fun to get to talk to you guys. What else can you do? Oh, I'm going to write about this too on my blog. So, there's like a link in my profile where you can read it if you want. I'll probably focus. I think what I'm going to do is like in the video, I'll just talk about all the random things I'm thinking. And then in the blog, I think I'm just going to try to focus on one thing. Cause last week when I was talking about the clone Tyrone, like I was kind of like, and this and this and this. So I'm going to try to find a through line for that, little short blog post, but that's what we'll do. And then next week, maybe we'll do an album. So stay tuned for that. And then we'll get back to the movies in a few weeks too. Okay, this is 35 minutes. I gotta sign off. Thank you for listening. And go check out, maybe you're here because you saw the interview already. And if so, please let me know what you think about that because it was so great. And then if you haven't seen the interview yet, definitely go check it out. I'll put the link to that here as well. Okay, thank you. See you later.